The detective's voice crackled through the phone at midnight, slicing straight into the quiet of my Chicago apartment. Ethan Reynolds? This is Detective Ramirez with the San Francisco Police Department. We're reopening the 2014 embezzlement case from your time at Technova. New digital forensics have surfaced, and the evidence now proves you were completely innocent. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles went white. 10 years of whispers, sideways glances, and a career that never quite recovered flashed before me. But what hit hardest was the realization that this phone call wasn't just clearing my name. It was about to rip open the one secret I had buried deeper than any financial crime. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, heart hammering, while Ramirez explained the new findings. Old server logs, recovered emails, and a deathbed statement from a former colleague had shifted everything. The real culprit had been Tyler Grant, my project manager and the man I had loved in silence. The money trail now pointed squarely at him. "We need you in San Francisco next week to give a formal statement," Ramirez said. "This exoneration will be public. You should prepare yourself." I hung up and stared at the city lights outside my window, wondering how a single case file could force me to face the life I had run from. The next morning, I called in sick to my architecture firm, something I had never done in 8 years. My boss, Mark, sounded concerned on the voicemail. "Take all the time you need, Ethan. You're our rock." If only he knew how fragile that rock really was. I packed a small bag, booked a flight, and spent the afternoon walking along Lake Michigan, replaying every moment from 2014. Tyler and I had met at Technova during a late-night coding sprint. He was charismatic, brilliant, and terrified of anyone finding out he was gay. I was the quiet designer who kept my personal life locked away because my Texas family still sent me church pamphlets every Christmas. Our relationship lived in stolen weekends at Airbnbs outside the city, whispered promises, and careful deletions of every text. When the embezzlement investigation started, Tyler panicked. He swore he'd fix it, that the missing funds were just a loan to help his sick mother. I believed him because love makes you blind. When the auditors pointed at me because I had signed off on the final reports, Tyler begged me not to say anything. "They'll dig into us, Ethan. They'll know." So I stayed silent, let the suspicion settle on my shoulders, and watched my reputation crumble. The case eventually went cold for lack of hard proof, but the damage was done. I quit, moved to Chicago, and built a new life where no one asked questions. I dated no one. I smiled politely at office happy hours. I told my parents I was too busy for relationships. Now the truth was coming for me whether I wanted it or not. By the time my plane touched down in San Francisco the next afternoon, I felt like the 25-year-old version of myself was waiting at the gate. The city smelled the same, salt air and eucalyptus, and my chest tightened. I checked into a small hotel near the station and tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Tyler's face the night he left. "I can't do this anymore," he had said. "I'm not ready to be out." That was the last time we spoke. The following morning, I walked into the police station feeling like I was stepping back in time. Detective Ramirez was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes that didn't match the gravity of the situation. He slid the reopened file across the table. "Read it, then we'll talk." Page after page showed Tyler's digital fingerprints on every transaction. My name was cleared in black and white, but buried in the attachments were old emails, personal ones between Tyler and me. Love letters disguised as project notes. Inside jokes. Plans for weekends we never took. Ramirez cleared his throat. "These came up in the server recovery. They're not relevant to the charges, but once this goes public, the media might connect the dots." I stared at the papers until the words blurred. My secret wasn't just a secret anymore. It was evidence. By the time I left the station, the afternoon fog had rolled in off the bay, wrapping the city in gray. I walked without direction, ending up at the old Technova building, now occupied by a different startup. The glass doors reflected a man I barely recognized, taller, broader shoulders, but the same scared eyes. My phone buzzed. My mother. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Ethan, honey, your sister saw on the news that they're reopening that old case. Are you okay?" The news was already out. Of course it was. Small-town Texas moves fast when it comes to gossip. I lied smoothly the way I had for years. It's good news, Mom. They found a real person responsible. I'm cleared. She exhaled in relief, then added the line I had heard 1,000 times. When are you going to settle down and bring someone home? Your father worries. I mumbled something about work and hung up, the familiar guilt twisting in my gut. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop and searched Tyler's name for the first time in a decade. He had moved to Seattle, married to a man. The wedding photos popped up immediately. Tyler smiling in a tux, his husband's arm around him, both of them laughing under string lights. The caption read, 10 years together and still my favorite person. My stomach dropped. 10 years. While I had been hiding, he had stepped into the light. The betrayal I thought I had buried roared back. He had left me holding the bag, literally, and moved on without a single word. That night, I met an old friend for dinner, Sarah, the only person from Technova who had stuck by me. She hugged me hard at the restaurant door. I always knew you were innocent, she said. Over pasta and wine I told her everything. The case, the emails, the fear. When I mentioned Tyler, her eyes widened, but not with shock. I suspected, she said softly, the way you two looked at each other in meetings. I never said anything because it wasn't my story to tell. For the first time in years, I felt seen. She squeezed my hand across the table. Whatever happens next, you don't have to face it alone. The next morning, the local paper ran the story. Technova embezzlement solved after decade. Innocent engineer exonerated. My name was everywhere. Colleagues from Chicago texted congratulations. Clients asked if I was okay. And then the messages I dreaded started arriving. Old high school classmates. Distant cousins. So the rumors were true, one wrote. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I booked a flight home to Texas for the weekend. If the truth was coming out, my family deserved to hear it from me first. The drive from the Austin airport to my parents' house felt longer than the flight. The fields rolled by in familiar green waves, but my hands shook on the wheel. My mother opened the door before I could knock, pulling me into a hug that smelled like fresh bread and childhood. My father sat at the kitchen table, newspaper open to the article. He looked up, eyes unreadable. Son, we need to talk. That conversation lasted 3 hours and left all of us exhausted. I told him about Tyler, about the love I had hidden, about why I had stayed silent during the investigation. My mother cried. My father stared at his hands. We raised you in church, he said finally. This isn't what we prayed for. The word stung, but I didn't argue. I simply said, I'm still your son. That hasn't changed. When I left the next morning, the house felt heavier than when I arrived. I threw myself into the gym after work, running on the treadmill until my legs burned. Sweat and exhaustion were easier than thinking. On the third night, a guy around my age smiled at me in the weight room. His name was Liam. He was a teacher, openly gay, and asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime. I almost said no out of habit. Then I remembered the police file, the emails, the look on my father's face. Sure, I heard myself answer. I'd like that. Our first coffee turned into dinner, then a walk along the river. Liam listened without judgment when I told him the shortened version of the last 10 years. You carried that alone for so long, he said. You don't have to anymore. His hand brushed mine on the railing, and I didn't pull away. For the first time, the touch didn't feel like something I needed to hide. But the universe wasn't done testing me. Tyler called the following week. His voice on the line was older, steadier. I saw the news. I owe you an apology, Ethan. I was a coward. I should have told him the truth back then. I listened to him cry on the other end, and something inside me cracked open. We met for lunch in a neutral cafe halfway between our cities. He looked good, happy even. His husband waited outside, giving us space. Tyler explained the pressure, the fear, the way his family had threatened to cut him off. I sacrificed you to protect myself, he admitted. I'll never forgive myself for that. I wanted to be angry. I had rehearsed the speech 1,000 times. Instead, I felt only tired sadness. I sacrificed myself too, I told him. We both lost. We parted with a hug that felt like closing a very old book. That night, Liam came over. We sat on my balcony with beers and talked until the stars came out. He didn't push. He simply stayed. When he kissed me goodnight at the door, it was gentle, honest, and completely unafraid. I slept better than I had in years. The firm's annual gala arrived 2 weeks later, and for the first time, I considered bringing someone. Liam offered without pressure. Only if you're ready. I was. We walked in together, his hand light on my back, and the room didn't explode. A few awkward glances, a couple of raised eyebrows, but Mark shook Liam's hand warmly, and the night moved on. Small victories. My sister called the next day. Mom's been quiet since you left. Dad too, but she's been reading articles online about everything. I think she's trying. Progress. Tiny, fragile, but real. Then came the real test. A major client, old money, conservative, pulled out a multi-million-dollar project citing personal values misalignment. The partners called an emergency meeting. I offered to step down from the account. Mark refused. This firm stands with our people, he said. The words meant more than he knew. We lost the client, but we kept our integrity. Liam and I spent weekends exploring the city. We visited museums, cooked terrible dinners, laughed until our sides hurt. He introduced me to his friends, loud, proud, kind, and they welcomed me like I had always belonged. One night, at a rooftop party, someone asked how we met. I told the story of the gym, the coffee, the reopened case. No one flinched. No one whispered. For the first time, I understood what living openly could feel like. But family wounds take longer to heal. My father's birthday was approaching. I bought a plane ticket and asked Liam if he wanted to come. He said yes before I finished the sentence. The flight to Texas felt different this time. I wasn't hiding. My mother met us at the door with nervous smiles and too much food. My father shook Liam's hand, eyes guarded but polite. Dinner was quiet at first, forks scraping plates. Then my mother asked Liam about his teaching job. He answered with warmth and humor. Slowly the conversation opened. My sister cracked jokes. My father even laughed once. When we left the next morning, my mother hugged me extra tight. Bring him again, she whispered. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fixed. But it was a beginning. Months passed in a blur of normalcy I had never allowed myself. Work stabilized. The firm won a new award, and my name was on the design. Liam moved in gradually. First a toothbrush, then half his closet. We argued about whose turn it was to do dishes and laughed about it later. The old case became just a story we told new friends. Tyler sent a Christmas card. Inside was a simple note. Thank you for letting me apologize. I'm proud of the man you've become. I replied with a short message wishing him well. Closure, finally. One evening, Liam and I drove out to the lake where we had our first real date. He pulled a small box from his pocket under the stars. Inside was a simple silver band. Not asking for forever yet, he said, but I want to walk toward it with you. I said yes before he finished. The ring felt cool and right on my finger. My family flew up for a small celebration. My father pulled me aside on the balcony. I won't pretend I understand everything, he said, voice rough. But I see how happy you are. That's enough for me. We stood shoulder to shoulder watching the city lights, two men who had traveled very different roads to the same place. The following spring, I stood in court for the final hearing. The judge read the exoneration order aloud. Outside, reporters waited, but I only had eyes for Liam holding my hand. Sarah was there too, cheering louder than anyone. As we walked down the courthouse steps, the sun felt warmer than it had in years. Life settled into a rhythm that felt earned. Mornings with coffee and quiet conversation. Evenings with friends who knew every part of me. Weekends visiting my family or hosting them in Chicago. The old fear that had lived in my chest for so long was gone, replaced by something steady and bright. One crisp autumn afternoon, Liam and I walked the same park where we had taken our first real photo together. Leaves crunched under our feet. He stopped by the fountain, turned to me, and smiled the way he always did when he had something important to say. Remember the night the detective called? He asked. I nodded. That call didn't just clear your name. It brought you home to yourself. I pulled him close, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne and the city air. In that moment, every sacrifice, every misunderstanding, every tear felt worth it. We had built something real, love that didn't need to hide, friendships that didn't flinch, a family that was learning to stretch. The journey hadn't been easy, but had been mine. And for the first time, I was proud of every step. True or false? Hiding who you are can ever truly protect the people you love?